Welcome to another episode of Lines and Precepts with Feyi Adesanya, and I am Feyi Adesanya. Okay, for some time now, we've been seeing some misinterpretations and misapplications of the law of sowing and reaping. That law is a wonderful law that, it works both in the physical and then also in the spiritual. But then, because of some misinterpretations and misapplications, it has been bastardized. What we want to do, and what we've been doing for some time now, is to look at those errors and then examine them so that we can avoid them. The one we want to focus on today is popularly called seed faith. The idea behind this is that you tie a seed to your need. What do I mean by that? I want to believe you have come across things like this. That if you have a need in your life, you go sow a seed to God, usually in terms of money. You sow a seed, and that will provoke God to meet that need in your life. That may sound somehow, that may sound okay, it's okay, except for the fact that it's not true. Am I saying that God cannot cannot lead you or ask of you a seed from you? Yes, He can, and there are examples even in scriptures to prove that God can. In fact, many times what we have, God needs us to show an act of faith and release it to Him. He will use to give us bigger things. Of course, that happens, and I've personally experienced that. But to teach that as a general principle, that every time you need something from God, you have to give Him something before He gives you something else. That would mean that you are buying something from God, buying a blessing. That would mean that you are bribing God. That would mean that you are using your giving to twist God, to force Him to do something. And that is not correct. That is not correct. Because to start with, what can you actually give to God to move God to give to you? What? He has already given us His only begotten Son. That's more than we can ever imagine, more than we can even we can balance out. So somebody gives you $10 billion and you need something extra from him. You take 1,000 naira and says, I'm giving you this, and on the basis of this, give me this. No, you don't have that. You are not on the same level to do that, because He has already given you too much. If you want to come to Him, come on the level, on the basis of His benevolence, on the basis of His grace. Somebody who has given you $10 billion already. So, that's the approach that we need to get to God. You need something from God, ask of Him by faith, in prayers. He will answer you. In fact, His word tells us in Romans 8 verse 32. He said, He that spared not His only Son, but delivered Him up for us, how will He not with Him freely give us all things? So there's nothing you want that God cannot freely give you. Okay? But you don't have to buy it from God. Again, I'm not saying that God cannot lead you to give. Okay? But to think that every time you need something, you have to sow a seed to get something from God, that is not correct. That is not correct. In any case, when you start going that lane, you are opening, you are making it possible for the accuser of the brethren, the devil, to accuse you. Because if you are saying you have given this, the devil will also remind God that, God, remember, He has not given this to, He hasn't done this. And there are a lot of things you haven't done and you haven't given, far, far more than what you have given. So don't go along that line. In Luke 18, I believe, Jesus said one parable, very fantastic, a Pharisee and a publican. The Pharisee came to God, and amongst other things, he said, I pay my tithes. So he's saying, God, you have to answer me because I pay my tithes. Is it wrong to pay tithes, or is it right? It's right. It's something good that I use. But on the basis of, people even take the scripture out of context. We'll have another time to check that, to look at that. The scripture in Malachi chapter 3 and say, because I pay my tithe, Lord, you will rebuke devourer for my sake. God will rebuke devourer for your sake. You pray to God, okay? And in fact, the scripture, the New Testament grants you the authority to rebuke the devourer, which is the devil, by yourself. All right, but for you to say because you do something for God, God must of a necessity do something for you is not correct. So he said concerning the publican and the Pharisee. The publican just, Lord, on the basis of your mercy. The Pharisee said, well, I pay my tithe, so you have to answer me. Jesus said the Pharisee went home, the publican rather, went home more justified than the Pharisee. Luke chapter 17 from verse 10, Jesus said, in effect, he said, we're unprofitable servants. Whatever it is you do for God or in the name of God, you do because your duty. You don't do it and say, God, you owe me because of that. No, God does not owe you because you give to him. It doesn't. So you cannot and you should not tie every need to a seed. You cannot use a seed to make God to meet your need. If you have a need, talk to God. He is willing to answer you. God is not as hard as you are making him look like. Again, I'm not saying God cannot lead you to do, but let that be a leading. Not that you just do every time you have a need, you sow a seed, or it doesn't work like that. Anyway, let me stop here for now. And then in the next episode, I will share yet another one. Another misinterpretation and misapplication of the law of sowing and reaping. Till I come your way again, remain blessed.